Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers. Michael Kilpatrick here with another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today I'm joined by Tanner Winterhof and Corey Hillebo, co-host of the Farm4Profit Podcast and a lifelong advocate for innovation in agriculture. Raised on swine and row crop farms in Iowa, they blend their background in ag finance with a passion for helping farmers boost profitability and sustainability.
Yeah, it still fits pretty close.
I mean, I don't have a background in finance, but
you
that's
have
fine.
a passion, though, for...
I mean, I don't like bankers, I guess, but...
Well, I mean, when they give you the money, you're friends, but then when you have to pay it back, it's always like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're happy to be here, and we don't need no introduction. We're fine just flying by the seat of our pants. We have a lot of fun doing this as well.
Okay, good. So talk to me about, the name of your podcast is Farm4Profit. And I mean, some people I think might even be a little offended by that. Well, we're not just to make money, but why money?
Yeah, our tagline is, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. Because even though you may think that you do it for a higher reason or a deeper value, no matter what, you still have to pay your bills. And if you don't pay your bills, a business is going to fail. So Farm for Profit, we also have our Farm for Fun shows because Corey came to the table and said, just so you know, it's not always profitable. Sometimes we do it for the love, for the passion, the fun of the game. So it is both facets of it, but ultimately on Farm for Profit, we try to provide you some new tip, trick, technique, something that you can learn while having fun listening to us. Our goal is to make it that stupid word of edutainment.
Edutainment.
We try to have a little bit of
like
fun
it.
while we do it.
Yes. So give us a little bit of background of like the size of your farms, and I'm assuming you just do mainly row crop, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead. You go first.
I farm, Corey here, I farm here in central Iowa, corn and soybeans. Used to do a little hay, don't do much of that anymore. And then we have a wean to finish contract hog operation, one site that was built in 1998, farm about 2,000 acres. And I came back to the farm full-time in 2013. Sell a little bit of seed on the side as well. I guess it's part of the farm. Joined the Farm for Profit podcast in 2020, which the actual podcast started in 2019. So,
okay, very cool.
Yeah, so I grew up on a farrow to finish hog farm. Mom and Dad still operate that farm, but it is now just finishing hogs and then grow corn and soybeans there. And then I married into a fat cattle feedlot that also grows corn, soybeans, and a little bit of forage crops. So only about 20, 30 minutes away here from Corey in central Iowa. So get to hold the steering wheel quite a bit and stay involved on those family operations, but focus the majority of my time here on the podcast now. But it's nice to stay relatable. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about right now in row crop farming, what is changing? I mean, I feel like maybe a decade ago, everyone really started to go no-till. And I feel like that is kind of, so Corey, talked about what you're thinking there.
No-till has certainly, I'm going to just lump no-till and cover crops and all that kind of movement into one. Yeah, I'd say you're right. 10 years ago, it started to shift. Now, is it a sizable percentage? I don't know. That's definitely not on the cover crop side of things. No-till, yeah.
Correct.
And if technically we moved to strip till on our farm in 21 or 22, and as far as the government sees it, that's no-till. Or
minimum till.
Minimum till, right? Or it's a reduced tillage. So I think everyone's trying to do a little bit better. But what we have learned through the podcast and farming ourselves is there is a million ways to get to the same result, it seems like, in farming. And from the guys that do full tillage to no tillage, it seems like we all end up pretty close.
Yeah, it's a very interesting industry because a lot of folks are extremely defensive of their standpoint and the way that they are doing things, and there are less that are open-minded to want to pick up something new. So it's always fun to be able to surprise somebody with a piece of information. But I would argue most farms still have the tools available because you might need them.
Yeah.
If you may keep that disc around because it's gonna get you out of a pinch if you're ideally like to go minimum till or no till. But we sure have seen a lot of speed tillage, a lot of vertical tillage to kind of scratch that itch of let's do a little bit but not have maximum disturbance as far as that goes. But your question around what's new, gosh, the technology in the machinery is fascinating. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of John Deere stuff in our studio, but from their see and spray technology to their fully autonomous tillage tools to their high-speed planters and then their combines with harvest automation, it's across every manufacturer, but that's probably been some of the biggest advancements.
Yeah, and really a lot of this technology allows us to reduce tillage and herbicide use or things of that nature because I planted into I tried to have a crop called aronia berries, which yep. If you
choke cherry is the other word.
Choke berry, yep. Choke cherry. I had 15 acres of them. That was what I was trying to do when I came back, and I had those for several years. So I had 15 acres of sod, and I eventually took them out. I'm not gonna say it failed. Just know I think I was ahead of the curve. I think they're going to get an industry going, but I couldn't sit there and bleed anymore.
Correct.
But I would not have ever went and just planted corn into that sod with a spring downforce planter or an airbag downforce planter. I had hydraulic downforce, and I went and dug behind it, and I was putting the seed like 2.5-3 inches deep. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, that would have never worked before. And it was beautiful. It was a great stand right into sod.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really incredible. Now, I've had my chance to ride in a fair number of John Deere combines. You mentioned some specific technology, though. What's that technology you mentioned, Tanner?
Let's call it harvest automation. So no longer does the operator have to be the most skilled combine operator because there's a lot of adjustments that are happening for you automatically. So it'll sense with cameras out in front of the combine, it'll sense the density of the crop ahead of it. It'll sense obstacles, whether it needs to speed up or slow down. A combine works its best when it is ran at max capacity. Like that, if the threshing is full, it's going to produce the best grain sample for you. So it's got all the sensors in there.
It's even using like imagery from space.
Yep. So its goal is to stay full.
Yeah.
And it takes a really skilled operator that if you ran side by side to keep that combine full by manually changing the speed of the combine, the automation's gonna win hands down just on productivity side of things.
And they've done a really good roadmap to this point. It didn't start out with imagery or anything like that. It was automation in the machine, like cameras, like how clean is your grain sample? Are you spitting anything out the back? Or things like that could make adjustments on the fly. Then they add a little bit more with the imagery from space and the cameras on the front. And labor is one of the biggest difficulties on a farm to find, especially skilled. Yes. Not just tillage. Sometimes you can put a butt in the seat, do a couple rounds with them, and say, all right, just keep doing that. Just keep it out of the ditch. A combine operator, a sprayer, a planter, person running a strip till. It's a skilled pass, and I'm not saying there's not enough out there, but sometimes it's hard to find someone like that, and you just need to be able to help that person shorten that learning curve, I guess. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And those are big machines, so any help you can get to be able to operate that better is preferred. Well, I think.
Let's face it, we're growing commodities and our margins are tight. You got to get that extra bushel. You got to be the most efficient because that's the one that's going to win.
Yeah. What's the change happening in the chemicals out there right now? Are there any big changes happening there?
Chemistry-wise, there's not a whole... if you listen to any of our recent podcasts this spring on chemistry, there's just not a lot of new chemicals coming to the market. But what I talked about earlier is some of this technology like See and Spray and imagery and things like that we can reduce the chemicals we are using. So we all know chemicals can be, it's a chemical, right? You don't want to drink it. You really don't want to be exposed to it that much. If we can reduce it, it's going to reduce our cost and reduce our exposure to it. I mean, it's a good thing.
Well, it's going to
keep the waterways cleaner.
Yep.
It's going to reduce the resistance too. I mean, if you're only spraying where that weed is, I mean, the amount of savings that we learned through a couple of those conversations with See and Spray, it just provides these chemical manufacturers another opportunity to get things approved, because now we can look at getting some labels approved that are used in this spot spray application rather than broadcast. So if you're able to get a new chemical approved because of its limited use but effective use, that's going to be a huge advantage. Because if you're only spraying what that camera sees in front of that boom, then it's less likely, right, to provide the contaminants, but then also to be generating a resistant plant in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one of the weeds that we see around here, well, I mean, we see a few different ones, but it was amazing to me because last year they had beans in the field. This year they had corn. And last year that weed was just awful. And this year, it was completely gone. They must have used a different chemical mix, and it's clean right through there. So that's always nice to see when, Yeah, I'll
say a lot of the conversations we've had about is, making sure that you're developing not just a chemical choice for this year, but a chemical plan in the long term, making sure you got different modes of action, making sure you understand where your residuals are and making sure those overlap. But it is a lot more, I would say, today goes into the plan you got to put together than in the past.
Yeah. A lot more regulations. We don't have like I said, there's not a lot of new technology that's come in that space. We don't have that big of a toolbox as it is. So, I mean, like this Roundup stuff and all that, like when we lost dicamba, even though I've never sprayed it on soybeans, losing that is actually negative. You're losing a tool in the toolbox. Every time we get one taken away, it's just, all the other tools just get overworked.
Yeah, absolutely. Giant ragweed. That was the one I was thinking about. That's a challenging weed. We actually, and even organics, that's a challenging weed for us, that we see more of that. I would say, though, the two biggest that we have challenges with are bindweed and Canadian thistle. That's our...
I hate
we see those.
I hate thistles. I've been spraying the crap out of them the last 2 weeks. So.
Yeah.
There's not a lot on the chemistry side. It's been more on the application side. I talked about the See and Spray, but then we've also seen a lot of drones come into the picture.
I wanted to bring that up. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so what are you seeing with that?
Well, the uses are continuing to expand. Right away in the beginning, it seemed like the early adopters were fields that had more rolling terrain. Mm-hmm. They were smaller in size. But now you're looking at operations that have mini swarms, 2 or 3 drones operating in a field, and they're doing it to be just as efficient with one operator as they can be. The technology for higher payloads is coming. They continue to develop more and more chemicals that can be sprayed from those. It's just exciting to see the different options and choices we have.
Yeah. And as we think of equipment, really doesn't go down in price, right? It's just went up and up and up. So if you go look at a brand new John Deere sprayer or a brand new Hagie sprayer, let's say Hagie because they can do a high crop, which would probably compete most with the drones. If you could get a drone for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, whatever they cost, the barrier to entry is so much less than that $600,000 sprayer.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not as efficient as in terms of hours sprayed, right? Like it's going to take you more hours, but they're dang close. It's close enough to justify the cost difference in it. I haven't made the jump yet to own my own drone, but I've definitely thought about it because if we don't have to have that Hagie anymore, maybe we get by with an older pull type sprayer for our pre and post that costs $15,000,
Yeah, and I'm assuming that these drones, or this technology advanced that the drones can actually do selective spraying of exactly where the weeds are too, or has that not come to the drone spraying yet?
Has not come to the drone side yet that we're aware of.
What a version of that is if you know you have like drownouts or terraces or waterways that you would like to go keep weeds out of, you can geofence those off and go spray those areas. So like when you get tall corn and you have and you know you had water sitting in a pond and there's no corn in it holding, nothing canopy. You're gonna have water hemp and ragweed and all that coming. You can go out there in July and do a 2,4-D application and make sure those weeds don't go to seed, because killing the weed before it ever goes to seed is the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So and it's one of those situations to where, we know of a couple of companies that are working on technology coming down the pipe, but today readily available. I feel like it's just not there yet. And that's kind of one of the things we try to do in all of our interviews is we obviously have our own personal choices on our family farms that we make, but we try to approach every one of these interviews, especially when it comes to ag tech, with an open mind and ask as many questions that we think the listener's going to ask, because it only makes that conversation better.
So us on the podcast have actually used drones in 2 other ways.
Yep.
Dave, our other co-host who's not here, has actually been using his drone to do stand counts. And do some disease type monitoring. And then we also have used TerraClear, who has a drone that goes up and maps rocks. So literally the dumbest thing on the farm, a rock, is using the highest technology. But we're seeing, and they actually have a service that'll come out and pick them for you too, or they'll just give you a map. But but this map will 200 rocks in say, let's say 160 acre field, or it'll give you a map and say this will take an hour and a half.
And this is the most efficient way.
And it'll give you a map to drive your skid loader or your rock picker in that field to each rock that is the most efficient. And that would have taken you 8 hours, before if you're actually just going up and down. And
well, we're on Ohio here. We don't have rocks.
Yeah. We got plenty.
Seriously though, but back in New York where we farmed, I mean, it was, absolutely. That would have been a massively helpful aspect. But here in Ohio, I mean, we're very small scale, but our fields are they're river bottom. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the reasons we've looked at drones is we do strawberries. It's our biggest crop of the year, and rain and strawberries do not mix. And so I've actually seen where some strawberry farmers are using drones to fly over and just blow off the beds.
Oh.
With the downdraft.
Yeah.
And then, obviously at the same time, you could do a fungicide application.
Sure. Yep.
So they're a little bit outside of our price range still, but I absolutely, if we can double the size of our strawberry operation, which we're looking at, I think it would absolutely be a nice tool in our toolbox to really help us with that.
So they've done that in like orchards and vineyards with helicopters to prevent frost before.
Absolutely, yeah. And the nice thing about a drones is, like, again, if you have this mini swarm and they have their self-docking technology, is now you don't have to be up all night lighting fires all over the aspect, or have as big of a crew. You have one person out there, because obviously you've got I think the FFA makes you monitor them, but it reduces your amount of labor and a lot safer than putting a helicopter up there.
Yeah, anytime you can take a pilot out of the seat, right?
Yeah.
It provides that extra level of safety. And when I was watching that TerraClear drone map the rocks, he had it to where he could switch his battery packs out without having to kill power on the drone. So it was switch one out while the other battery pack was still maintaining constant power. So it provided that transition of, ease.
Really?
Came back, went back together. So it's kind of neat. You avoided that having to, it shut off,
which
reconnect.
sounds minimal, right?
Yeah.
Right? Sounds like, you saved 30 seconds there, or a minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah, whatever the reconnection
this folding
time
corn
is.
head, why don't you just get a non-folding corn head and put it on a trailer? I think people don't value every minute you save, or 30 minutes, especially in the heat of the moment. It just stacks up, and all of a
Opportunity
sudden,
cost.
You're so much more efficient.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah. All right. So let's switch a little to that, because I like you brought that up. Business and farming. Obviously, being a businessman is very important in farming. Talk about some of the common things that you see trip up farmers and help and cause them to really not treat it like a business?
Farmers are most of the time traditionalists, and they love agriculture, and that's why they're there. And most love to work. They don't love to sit in their office and go through numbers or balance their checkbook even, let alone understand where they stand financially. Our episode that went out this week that we're recording this with you is about how an individual, Jesse Bounds, has 10x'd his business, and he provides a networking opportunity for a peer group to help folks grow their farms, but you have to treat it like a business. And the one thing that he said was the most valuable to him was switching to accrual accounting. Well, you have to have someone with a very thorough understanding of accounting in order to run accrual books.
Correct.
And there's a pretty famous seed company around here that said farmers are famous for being the vet, the accountant, the mechanic, the agronomist, doing all these jobs, and we do all of them. But which ones could someone do better as far as that goes? So probably the most common thing that any farm can improve is their financials.
Yeah, and I would definitely echo that. We're looking at that on our farm. I have come to realize I'm fully capable of sitting in the office, but it's one of those efficiency things. It stresses me out to be in there, and I'm wasting time. I could be doing other things because it takes me 8 hours to do a 2-hour job for a CPA or CFO or whatever. So I'm looking at fractional CFOs and things of that nature for the farm. And, what can I do with my farm? I can go be a better farm. I can go spray fence rows. I can go do landlord relations, do a tile project, put in a new driveway, haul grain, just all that stuff that I constantly feel like I'm behind on. So I would say, and then maybe it's not, maybe you like the office. So find something else that allows you to be more in the office and hire someone to go spray fence rows or whatever, type of a deal.
Yeah, that's the second thing is the delegating side of it. And we even saw that here at the podcast. When we started it, I was editing every show. I edited the audio, and as most audio editors know, for every 1 minute that you record, it's 3 to 5 minutes of editing post-production wise.
Yes.
Well, then you started including video, and that prolongs the process even more. So for me, it was a necessary task that needed to be done. But the moment that I gave it up, this podcast exploded in growth. You just had so much more time to think strategically. You had so much more time to develop those relationships, connect with your audience, respond to comments. I mean, we love our audience, the text messages we get, the email suggestions that we get. And if I was buried into the editing side of it, it would be never ending.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But it's that way on every farm. Delegating, like you were saying, find someone to drive truck. Maybe you got to buy an automatic semi. But
yes.
I ain't driving that automatic thing. I'll give me 18 speed.
But if you can have someone who hauls grain for you, and then you freed up your time.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things that we did is we hired a guy named Dan, and Dan is our driver. Early this week he had to go pick up shipping paper down in an hour away. This morning he did a delivery run, and then he stopped by and picked up some pipe parts I needed. And with phones and stuff, he can be at the store and FaceTime me and say, "Hey, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to get," but literally it saved me so many hours.
Well, what I'd see firsthand on one of the family farms is father-in-law will be very quick to be the parts getter. And that's fine, but if it takes any longer than an hour, you have to really plan for the rest of the employees a task that you can do while you're gone. Otherwise, most of the time when he gets back to the shop, there's somebody just sitting waiting for instructions. If you could send somebody else on that parts run, they're busy that whole time, and you can still be there actively managing your farm.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to manage them, then hire someone that is the foreman, and then you can go be the parts getter.
Yep.
Right?
So that's very interesting. So I think you're now talking about creating your own dream job on your farm.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, for the both of you, which role do you take?
Yeah, I would say for me, right, I'm that flex person. on either one of the family farms because I'm not there every day, but I can be there every day in a busy season. The best thing about having a podcast is it's not a live radio show.
Correct.
So we can pre-record content during harvest and planting seasons, which allows a lot more flexibility of schedule. So for my involvement, it's that let's find a peg and stick it in a hole. That could have been anything from driving truck to planting corn to running tender to just helping work cattle. So I fit in all spots, and then more have an advisory role when it comes to the management side, just due to the exposure through Farm4Profit.
Well, and I think you're just disconnected enough that advisory role, like you come in and be like, why are we doing this? Like, it is so much more efficient if we could just do it that way or this way. And by the way, did they switch to corn on that last field?
They actually called and found out if they had 100-day corn, if Ryan could get it. Oh. So they at least made a call.
I have a few bags.
A few bags?
Yeah, it wouldn't be enough. My roles on the farm, it has changed a lot in the last 3 years since we started taking the podcast a lot more serious, and we got my brother back to the farm. My brother came back to the farm without as much farming experience as I did. I helped out a lot more on the farm growing up than he did. And so we just started from two different places. So he was kind of learning. But it took a lot for me to step a little bit back out of managing everything and let him kind of work with Dad a little bit. He's a list guy, give him lists and make his own mistakes and things of that nature. I mean, Dad and him are out spraying right now while I'm doing this. Doesn't mean I'm not working on the farm today. I'm still been here twice and in and out. It's more of a management role. And sometimes they probably don't appreciate that as much. But that's how, I mean, I plant, but there's nothing stopping my brother from coming to plant. I would like him to be able to do everything on the farm. And they're like, why don't you hop in the sprayer and do it? And it's like, I can spray. I know I can. I don't need to,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, both of you are on family farms, and I know that can get challenging too.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of the next thing I was going to bring up is what's a hiccup for most operations. Everyone's got family, and everyone has issues with succession. And it is just a common theme. We just on the discussion we were having before this podcast, it was in that discussion. I mean, I bet we don't go a week without talking about it. I bet. And that's one thing that we see. It just tears families apart. And I don't care how, we're good, that's not going to happen to us. We all agree. Well, when someone dies unexpectedly, or you start realize the off-farm siblings realize how much the farmland is worth. When you start seeing 7 digits, it's a big deal, and people change. And it's sad that it's that way, but it's so much better to have a plan while everyone's alive and then execute it.
Yeah. Yeah. We, over in Columbus, which is about an hour and a half from us, they decided to put that big Intel chip plant in, and it was a disaster over there. I mean, farmland prices tripled, quadrupled, because now with Intel buying so much land, everyone wanted to be around them. And so we had farmers went to Kansas, which I don't know why you would. That's a very challenging switch for me, but
it's almost worse than going to Nebraska.
Almost, but not.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely something that now. So succession plan, getting that developed, and I mean, putting the land into like a business or like a trust is probably also helpful to make sure that when someone dies, it just doesn't all of a sudden have to be split.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've probably explored a dozen different ways that people have effectively done a succession plan. Ultimately, what we've learned is the level of communication at the utmost importance is what has made any of these plans successful. Because if you just up and put it in a trust and your kids don't know about it, there's still going to be bickering, fighting, frustration after you pass because there's a lack of clarity. The plans, whether it's in a trust, in a corporation, individually deeded, or terms in a will, if there can be a pre-death meeting, that maybe happens on a regular basis. I'm talking, maybe every other year or a celebration. We had one advisor tell us that if you can make it a celebration, this is something no other family does. We should be extremely proud of our ability to communicate. We're going to have a party. The first hour of this party is focused on this conversation. After that, barbecue and drinks and whatever to celebrate how we are proactive. But anything from setting up a separate company, putting it into a trust, just developing a will that has clear instructions to it, to the one that we had today is an equity fund that still allows ownership through shares. But we've explored a lot of different avenues, and the most effective ones are just those that can openly communicate about it before.
Yep. And there's the time to start is now. I don't care if you're 25 or 75. Things happen so fast. It needs to be a conversation, and I would say little consistent meetings too. Like you're talking about the party. We don't do it consistently in the busy times, but we try to meet at least once a week for 30 minutes. Maybe it's over lunch, maybe it's over breakfast or coffee, and just go over what are we doing this week, what are the roles, and just by doing that and getting comfortable with that, everything else will go so much easier.
Yeah. We do a daily stand-up when we have a set time. Everyone has to be on the farm, and so we do a daily stand-up real quick just to kind of see what everyone's focused on. But as my team matures, I think we probably could move it to a lot less frequently.
Yep.
Yeah. And it is. A lot of new people. It's neat to see how everybody handles it differently. And everybody's vision of success is different too, because they could be looking to achieve different things. Farm4Profit has a meeting with our team every other week, and that fits our schedule. Some of us meet more frequently. Some of us meet at only that time. But it does create a really neat experience. But one of the things that I've got the honor of basically observing is in my in-laws operation, my father-in-law is there, my brother-in-law is there. I've got two nephews that are there and working, and I'm an uncle, brother-in-law, son-in-law into that. But then I've also got a niece and a nephew from another sibling that are there. So now it's uncle, nieces, nephews, father-in-law, grandpa, cousins that are all functioning together for different periods of the year. And that's so fun to step back and see what that development is and how that works. And there's very few family farms that get that luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk a little bit about kind of like what like forward thinking planning are you guys doing? Are you guys thinking about new, probably not new crops, but new technology, new things you're going to implement the next couple of years? What's your like the forward facing vision for your operations?
For mine, we started that when we started going to strip till, really. We all see this 45Z, we all see the push to being more sustainable and that, all the buzzwords there. I mean, we're doing it for efficiency. I always say farming's logistics, and what that was a big logistics push for us. My brother wasn't back yet, and we were trying to do 3 or 4 jobs with 2 guys, and it just wasn't working. So we were taking one job off the table and moving it to a time that we had time. But we also knew the sustainability aspect of it, potentially carbon credit payments, potentially 45Z. It just helps improve our position there, but also allows us to be more efficient with fertilizer and things of that nature. So it's, moving in the right needle. So that's probably what we're looking at. Is we know that's looming. Yeah. Nothing is set in stone that it's going to come to fruition, but we're going to be set up if it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little different spin on your question, because we get so much exposure through Farm4Profit that most don't. And it's sometimes a challenge to not sit back and go, oh, I want to try that. I want to try that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you just look at the capital that it takes to get into it. But the most successful people that we have interviewed are running their farm, but they're also running 2 or 3 other businesses. So I would say that the future outlook of our family is what other businesses can we invest in that are going to mutually complement what we have going on here? You know, and Farm for Profit's one of those businesses because we get opportunity. We're not going to hide that, right? There's value that can be brought to anybody's operation through a media company like this, but is it investing in, you know, South American farms? Is it investing in new technology for chemical application or drones or whatever that looks like, to really diversify not only assets in a portfolio, but maybe income sources for the farm too?
I would have invested into that, into ground around Intel.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yes. Okay, so where do you see, because I see some ads for farmers all the time, and there's this one particular farm that is trying to sell other farmers on like his specific system, and one of the big things he pushes is doing custom operator for other farms. Where do you guys see that in a farm's portfolio? Do you see that as an opportunity or it's a problem?
Yeah, we've done a full episode or two.
Yeah, we've talked about it several times.
Yep.
Of custom farming. I don't see it negative at all.
Okay.
It's something that's been a part of our farm's portfolio since I've been back on the farm full time and before. And it wasn't something that we set out to go be a custom farmer. It just was one of our landlords, for tax reasons, wanted to go to the custom farm rather than crop share or lease, because it allowed them, you know, to make daily decisions and all that kind of stuff, which made them a farmer, Schedule F farmer. So you can't fault that. There's some good and bad sides to it. The good is it maybe allows you to, you know, instead of that 770 combine, you can go to a 780. You can be a little bit more efficient. You can justify it. It helps you know your numbers going into the year a lot better. You know exactly how much you're going to make per acre. Yeah. But the downfall is sometimes it does feel, especially when you break down on one of those farms and have a big expense, it feels like you're wearing your machinery out way faster.
Correct.
And so you really got to know your numbers well.
Yeah, and my nephew was texting me since I've been in the studio today, and we just finished forage chopping our rye crop, and it went the smoothest it's ever gone. So he's sitting there going, why don't we custom chop? Well, historically, it hasn't gone this smooth. And with that, it's hard to commit to additional acres. But a forage harvester is an expensive piece of machinery that has a lot of moving parts that if something goes wrong, everything's spinning at a high rate of speed, so repairs are typically expensive. So he very quickly came right back and he said, well, what about manure spreading? Okay. A manure spreader is a relatively low-tech piece of machinery, supposedly built quality, and if you've got scales and you can follow a precision map, if you were able to line up custom manure spreading, our farm would probably be set up to do something like that efficiently. So it's a topic that I think can weave into anybody's operation, no matter the crop or the livestock that they have, because it can supplement cash flow as long as it's done with the right forethought.
Yep.
Now, Corey, you did mention something earlier where you said at a time in your business, you were like two guys doing the work of four people.
Yep.
And obviously, you wouldn't want to try to pick up custom work if that's the case, because it's just going to spread you thinner and nothing's going to get done right.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be in the right position to be able to go take that on. And in something like that, I would almost go, like if it's, let's say it's a sprayer, right? Well, if we could take custom spraying on. Yeah, but we're already spread too thin. I would rather maybe go talk to the neighbor and form an LLC or something, or partnership, and own a sprayer with a neighbor, because that's something that you can get done relatively fast, and then you're not on the hook for all the expense of the repairs and the cost of the machine and all that.
Yeah.
But it is a great way if you do have a kid wanting to come back to the farm. There's some custom things that you can do. I mean, there's different niches in every area. Maybe it is spraying, maybe it's planting, maybe it's harvesting. There's a way that you can bring income back to the farm and help supplement a kid wanting to come back to the farm. Because when I came back to the farm, there was no spot for me. Dad and grandpa at the time were like, yeah, farming's good right now, but like there's really not that much of a spot. So that's why I did the aronia berries. That's why I got into hogs, and that's why I started selling seed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Where do you see the family on the farm happening? Because I know some people talk about needing less and less operators, but then you also have the kids that want to come back. So do you see people just trying to expand out more and more? Especially with now more drones and more automation.
Yeah, it's been the big argument on social media, with all this AI and automation, and you're killing the family farm and all that. I mean, the fact is, it wouldn't be coming if there wasn't a demand for it. So I don't know. I love the technology, but if you want to go farm with a 40/20, then go farm with a 40/20. There's ways to do it. And then if you want to farm with a 40/20 and make it automated, then figure out how to do that. Like I don't know. People want to police the world. It just is what it is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough because you still see so much of a push in schools to go get a degree, fine, but pursue a certain lineup of professions that generates this level of income. And very little colleges, high school counselors are sending people out to be business owners, which ultimately is what a farmer is. But that's the same thing when it comes to a plumber, to somebody that does electrician work, to somebody that, is a mechanic. Those a lot of the time are business owners, and we don't train a lot of young kids anymore to go into that art of running their own business. They're trained to be a really good employee, which is fine. But in the grand scheme of things, that's where I see the fallback is you may have a family, which are smaller now, right? 2 and 3 kid families.
Correct.
And you just may not have any interest for anybody to come back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's interesting too, because I think one of the statistics is that is it 70% of farmland is going to change hands? Is it the next decade?
Yeah, we've seen a similar statistic to that. Dave usually brings that up, but a lot of that land is currently owned by an aging population that it will need to transfer one way or the other.
Yeah. And it's tough because it's interesting around here. Obviously, Ohio is big time farming here, and I kind of was telling something, and I said it's kind of like the farming mafia around here because all the land is tied up, and like it's almost impossible to get.
Yep.
So as our farm grows, it's literally been just a few acres at a time. And again, we don't need the land. We're not looking for hundreds of acres. We're direct to retail, so we're in very specialty crop. But it's definitely very interesting. Land ownership, land tenure is a very interesting thing that's changing. So,
yeah, I used to get pretty frustrated because every area has its own frustrations, and land seems to be a reoccurring one. Depends on where you're at, located next to an interstate or a town or whatever. And we are same thing, very tightly held. A lot of I don't even want to call it old money, but just a lot of old family land that's been in it for generations, and they all see the payday coming, and so they do everything they can to hold on. And I used to complain about it, but at the end of the day, you got to kind of figure out if it's not working this way and you keep doing it that way, and you complaining is going to do nothing. You got to kind of find a way around, right?
Yeah. And this last piece that we're probably going to pick up this fall after the farmer pulls his crop off, the owner came to us, and I think what it takes being in a community for a while and people being willing to trust you. Yeah. Even though, we're able to offer, because again, we're high value crops, we're able to offer up to 50 to 60% more than most, conventional grain crops are offering, but they'll even look at us, and then maybe a year or two later they'll come back and say, hey, you were talking about this, let's have a conversation now. Yep. So definitely been interesting. Well, guys, any final thoughts before we go? I really appreciate the conversation today.
We're full of all kinds of thoughts. Ultimately, we love doing what we do. Neither one of us, if you'd asked us 6 years ago, would have thought, one, we'd ever have a studio of our own, 2, be putting out 2 shows a week, and 3, spending as many hours producing the content that we do. There's a lot of times that we say over and over again that as co-hosts of Farm for Profit, we're not influencers. We're the ones that get to interview those that have influence or expertise. So it's really humbling to have an audience to be able to visit with. Sometimes it's only a one-way conversation, but interaction and connecting with people is just a lot of fun that way.
Yep. And I would say a lot of people like to paint us into we're pro big ag, pro corporate farming and all that because we have John Deere as a sponsor and, all that. It's like we're a pro all of agriculture. We love small agriculture. We love big agriculture. It's we just need to be pro ag, right? And so I'd say check out the Farm for Profit podcast on anywhere you listen to podcasts, YouTube, all the socials, and you'll see that. It's just a lot of times the most interesting things to talk about is a lot of new technology and cool stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, 2 shows a week, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You guys put it out there. I was actually talking to the team today. Like we do 1 show a week, and I was like, guys, I've got a lot going on in my life. I'd really like to start cutting that back. And so we chatted a little bit about some things we could do to make that happen. But you guys are putting a lot of content out. That's awesome to hear. And given, I think the beautiful thing is that you are giving farmers something to listen to and something to new ideas. Because as you said earlier, Tanner, is that they're traditionalists. They stay with what they're stuck with. And I think, as you said, technology is changing so fast. The social and the political climate is changing fast as well, that a huge way farmers can succeed is by staying current with what's going on.
Yeah, we address every topic as a conversation. We're never force-feeding any information to the audience. We go in it trying to be as curious as we possibly can because we look at it as a privilege that, 1, we get to talk to a person, and 2, get to talk to somebody with the level of expertise that they have. So it's not ever taken for granted, and the content is driven by our audience. I mean, we could be putting out more shows a week if we took the time to do it by the number of topics and folks that people wanted us to interview. We got an interview an email while we were sitting on this interview with another guest suggestion. So we appreciate our audience. We appreciate your audience. Anybody that can support Ag Podcasts is great because it's a method where you can choose what you want to listen to, and hopefully you have fun while you're listening.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's the cool thing, too, about the wide range of guests is that there's something for everybody.
Yep.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on today. Really appreciate your time and the conversation. And, hope your year ends up being a wonderful farming year.
Well, we appreciate the invite, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.
All right.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.